If something in you felt nervous about clicking on this video, I want you to know that it makes complete sense. Right now, every war, the chaos, natural disasters you see on the news probably feels like confirmation of everything that we were taught about the last days. Your body is probably screaming, "This is it. Armageddon is here." You see, I know that feeling because I remember in 2020 when the pandemic hit. You see, I was physically out of the religion, but I was still very much mentally in. I was a POMI. And so when the pandemic hit, I was thinking, oh my goodness, this is the beginning of Armageddon. And so my body went straight to panic mode. But here's what I discovered, and what two incredible women who's sitting with me today also discovered after leaving. That fear was not put there by a God or a creator. No. But that fear was actually put there by a system. And so today we're just going to pull it apart, right? Piece by piece, so that you can finally breathe. Today, I have two incredible women with me who know exactly what it feels to grow up inside a system built on fear. We have Debbie Mack, who is a former Jehovah's Witness, turned healer, speaker, and who brings so many years of experience in training and development. We also have Wendy, who is a former Mormon, now speaker, author, and a community leader who has over 7,000 members. And what makes this conversation so special is that we come from two different religions, but we were all taught that we were supposed to look out for signs of the last days and that the world was going to end. So let's start there, ladies. Debbie, do you remember when we were in the religion, Jehovah's Witnesses, do you remember the specific signs that we were taught to watch out for, which meant that the end is near and that we are living in the last days? Because I remember sitting at the Kingdom Hall, they were speaking about wars and moral decline.
Famine, pestilence, the four horsemen of Revelation. Oh yeah, I remember all of that, Aubrey. I remember events like 9/11 and kind of wondering if that was part of the signs that
Yeah.
we were to expect that meant the end was here, or that we were moving into the Great Tribulation or the last days.
Mine was the pandemic and 9/11 too. Yeah. How about you, Wendy? You being from the Mormon church, did you have any similar signs to look out for?
Yeah, for sure. You've mentioned a couple of them. We didn't call it Armageddon. We didn't call it the rapture. We called it the second coming,
Uh-huh.
meaning the second coming of Jesus Christ. In my magical mind, I imagined this visitor from heaven coming out of the sky. But we were to look for like prophets that will be killed in the streets of Israel. So all this, I imagine, because I'm no longer in the religion, I imagine a lot of this talk about Christian nationalism and Zionism, and all of this was very, very prominent in the LDS doctrine. So we were to look for just signs that everything was falling apart, that people were no longer honest. There was just so much wickedness in the world. It's a strange teaching because it just puts you in fear, and you're looking for it, and you're constantly saying, "Is this it?" So COVID, I was already out of the church during COVID. But 9/11, I do remember my kids were really young, and I was like, here it is, folks. Hunkered my little kids into my little nesting arms and going, we've got to be strong. And then it was just, a couple months later, and the world was back to normal.
Wow. When you were both in the religion, did you actually feel scared when you were taught those signs? Like, did you feel it in your body?
So a great question. I in the religion, and it wasn't until I left and I've learned so much about the nervous system and about the body, I didn't realize while I was in it that I was severed from my body, like very disconnected from feeling anything in my body. And so to answer your question, in retrospect, yes, I was in constant hum of fear in the background of, what's going to happen next. And I can't trust these people, can't trust anybody outside of my religion. And I just waiting for the world to collapse, and then constant fear of like intrusive thoughts from the devil. Like at any moment, I was just so vulnerable from being overcome by Satan and his desire to destroy me and to keep me so far connected from the divine. And so it really is. It also tells me at the same time to peace, be still, and it also tells me at the same time, fear not. So it's just this constant hum of confusion and fear was certainly, in fact, I remember with my own children when they were very tiny, we had a power line go out right by our house and it was spinning up and the wires were whipping and making some strange, almost looks like what the background of what's going on in Debbie's background there. But it was in the sky and I grabbed my little babies and I was just praying as hard as I could. So yeah, to think that I was always on edge like that something bad was about to happen.
Well, it's interesting now, when I think about that question, because I think because I had left the organization when I was younger, when I left, the fear of Armageddon is coming was more palpable and it drove me back inside the organization. But when I came back inside, even though I'm hearing and seeing all these things that are unfolding in the world, there's also this running thought in the back of my mind that, okay, but if this is going to happen, what is our plan? Right. And so that kind of made me question whether or not it was really actually going to happen because I didn't see any plan. And for me, I didn't feel any fear around that. I didn't feel any fear about Armageddon coming. I didn't know why I didn't feel fear around it. Right. But I watched everybody else kind of get squeezed into that fear. And I was
Right.
always wondering, how come I'm not feeling what they're feeling? It's because I was thinking beyond the unfolding of the event, right? So you mean to tell me we have no plan for all the people that are going to be killed? Who's going to take care of, these bodies that are going to be lifeless on the ground? So
Mhm.
I was thinking other things. So the fear that did not make me feel fear.
It's so interesting. I was
Mhm.
going to say, did you feel less fear because maybe you were looking forward to paradise? Because
That
there's
didn't
hope
seem,
there.
yeah, but that didn't even seem real either after a while.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't know why. I couldn't feel paradise. And I used to feel really, if anything, I didn't feel fear. I felt a little bit of guilt for not
Interesting.
being able to feel the future paradise in my mind or even like think about it. And then I would also think at the same time, well, if everybody here is going to be there and all the people that I know beyond the organization are not going to be there, then maybe I don't want to be in paradise. So if
Mm,
anything, there's a lot of conflict, a little bit of shame going on, but not a lot of
not a
fear.
lot of, so that's good.
Yeah.
How about you when you do they teach a restoration after the end?
Well, okay, so our first restoration was restored by Joseph Smith. The gospel of Jesus Christ was restored by Joseph Smith. That's the main tenets actually of Mormonism. But then there's the second coming, so the next coming of Christ will come, and that he will lead over the world, um, but and only the righteous would still be here. And this is the funniest thing because now in retrospect the logistics are ridiculous. I mean, what this cataclysmic thing is going to happen, and our neighbors across the street are dead, and there's dying in the street, and there's all this turmoil. I'm like, that does not sound like heaven. That's not a reward for living righteously, because who's going to be picking up this stuff? And I love my neighbors, and they're not my religion, and that seems weird. And now I have to go and help clean up my dead neighbors, and the logistics of all of it. It really created dissonance with the magical thinking and the critical thinking were colliding like crazy. The biggest thing was not being connected with my family in the next
Yeah.
life. And that was the thing that was most terrifying for me, especially as a mom losing my children. That really ignites something in the psyche. In the LDS faith too, another component is to have your food storage. So we were instructed to have food storage of 3 months minimum. But many of us here, it was called, when I was growing up, it's called a year supply. And so if you would look in the garage of any LDS person, they have stores and stores of food and supply. And for me, watching my parents get all this storage, um, when my mom had her stroke and my dad had already passed away, we threw away so many cans of food storage that my parents had been packing around their whole entire life. That sincerely, if something traumatic had happened, those beans would not even be consumable. They would probably make us die. The oats were just people would rather starve. Literally, but we were so dedicated in being faithful and hauling these tin cans all over the world, and So it's fascinating what these looping of fear stories and then keeping that narrative of fear causes the mind to do to try to prepare for something cataclysmic.
Can I just say something to that, to what Wendy just said? Because I've never heard it said that way, Wendy. The magical thinking and the critical thinking were at war in
Mhm.
your mind. And that's exactly what it feels like. And I often wonder if there are people in the organization today that don't realize that's what's happening, right? Because there's a part of the whole end of days thing that doesn't seem grounded, at least didn't for me. It didn't seem grounded in reality.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there was this fear-based rhetoric that was being pushed that was conflicting with, it doesn't sound like it's real, but they're trying to make me think it's real, that it's really going to happen.
It's always preparing for the times of the end. What I was thinking is that this system is fear-based, but it's also in a sense hope-based. Like they have a combination of two.
Mhm.
The religion has these fears that they put in you, but then they also have a hope that they put in you. If it was just fear alone, I think people would leave. But the fact that there's also hope and reward attached to it is a reward of paradise or the reward of, oh, you're going to see your loved ones again.
That's the hook.
Yeah.
That's the hook. Like you said, that's how they keep people in and they bring people in, right? To give them both sides of the coin, right? But the question is, what are you really hoping in? Are you hoping in something that is actually real, right? Where did you get this information from that you're basing this hope on,
Hmm.
right? And I think for me, the kind of education I opened myself up to kind of helped me really release a lot of that because this life, this is just
Yeah.
life that is unfolding. It's been folding for how many millennia, however long humans have been here, right? It's just a systematic rise and fall of humanity,
Mhm.
right? And so the whole hope for paradise, right? This utopia, what are you really basing it on? But if you don't know what they're basing it on, if you don't know the scriptures they're using or misusing, then you are hooked into the cycle of waiting for something. And that honestly, I feel like that takes away from your opportunity to live your life now, right? If you're thinking the end is coming, and after the end, there's this hope, but the end is not here, right? Something is changing, but it's not ending. And I think that's an issue that people inside don't really have access to information or education enough to understand what is really happening and where they get those stories from that keep them in the cycle of fear and hope. It's a cycle.
The way I describe it in psychology is like a trauma bond. It's
Mhm.
like I'll give you these breadcrumbs of hope, and I'll also sugarcoat it with the idea that we have the authority and we know the way, so follow us. And if you don't, then blah, blah, blah. And then you have the fear story. And what that creates is a trauma bond. I call it, I don't know if in Jehovah's Witnesses, it's called the good news of the gospel.
Mhm.
But you first have to be sold the bad news and be convinced that the bad news is true in order to buy into the good news. So for us, it was like Jesus died on the cross because you were born a sinner, and that's problematic. But we have a solution. So if you follow Jesus, then everything is going to be okay. And there's like so many different forms of that. And so we were sold this bad news and never given opportunity to even challenge the bad news.
Yeah, and I'm sure that feels completely different body-wise
For sure.
before and now, right? But let's get into like how you both broke free from the fear. It's been more than a decade since you both left the high control group. So, because many people think that, once you leave the religion, the organization, that you automatically leave the fear behind as well. But we know that's not how it always works. There's definitely a lot of deprogramming that you need to do, part of the healing process. So what did breaking free from the fear that the organization instilled actually look like for both of you?
Well, I'll just start because mine was funny. When I left, I honestly said, I don't care if a pretty pink fireball is going to come and zap me out. I'm leaving anyway. So it was almost as if I didn't have a fear anymore once I recognized what I had been told is not necessarily true, right? I was able to kind of, for me, it was a really fast decompression of everything. Like, okay, that's not right. I'm out. Let's explore. Right. For me, it was certain things I noticed while I was actually in that kind of helped me to put it all together. For the first one was the fact that how my family came into the organization, okay, and what their generational religious history looks like as Black people, right? How do we end up believing what we believe when it looks kind of strange compared to other cultures and what their gods look like? So that was the first thing. It made me open myself enough to go, what did we believe? Right. The second thing is, I wasn't born believing this, and nobody is. Nobody was born believing the end of the world is coming. Why are we telling people this? So let's investigate. So for me, it was looking into why do not only Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons, there's other denominations within the under the umbrella of Christianity that holds this idea. Why do we believe this? History. And so for me, because I like to learn, right? So it was about reading as much history about the original people that some of these stories belong to, why they felt the way they did. I also took deep dives in school with religious history, Christian history, finding out that a lot of the end time stories is just like this teaching that they came up with that's not scriptural called Christian futurism. When you read about that, that's when it starts to make sense. Like, oh, they're using past events to connect to future events when they don't connect. And so from that standpoint, for me, it was about being curious, being open, recognizing fear is something that keeps me closed. So release a little bit at a time to the point where I'm open enough to just say, you know what, I just want to know, what is the purpose of my existence here? Because none of us come here believing this stuff. So what is the original reason why humanity or humans believe in end of times? And that to me is a big discovery that you have to be prepared for. Yeah, so I dropped the fear pretty quickly, Aubrey, because I don't like that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognized that very early on as a witness, like I don't like feeling afraid.
Yeah.
So what is that about? So it was about just being open, being curious, not being afraid to find out if I was right or maybe they were right, but just wanting to live my life on my terms, not with the end of times running in the back of my mind.
Wendy, did you have anything to add to that?
I do. I think what's caused me to really release the fear is that I found that inner voice inside of me that witnesses of what's true for me. And when I feel that that is oscillating or heightened or dysregulated, then I tune in. I'm like, what am I afraid of? What is going on here? And then I write it down. And when I wrote it down and I looked at it, is this thing true? And that was like a process about a year. I just had a little book that I carried with me and I wrote down, this is what I'm believing right now. And most of the time I'd look at it and like, oh my gosh, that's so silly. And it's not that I even need to know where it originated. Sometimes I would know where it originated, but I would renegotiate with the sentence because the belief is a code in me, and my body and my psyche is responding to the code. So if I pull the code out and it's like, I think if I make a lot of money, I'm probably going to, sabotage it all, or just interesting beliefs. I don't think so and so likes me. I don't think just whatever random thing came out throughout the day, and then I would challenge it. I say, is that true? How do I know this? What story am I making up? And I got very familiar with this imaginative mind that I have, and I really started associating childhood insecurities with what I was experiencing in my adulthood, and that's what I call that final capacity to confront myself and say, look at this. Let's look at it objectively. Where is it coming from? Where is it sourced? And I get that the truth could be, I could just get little portions, and maybe I'm getting only little segments of the truth, but I started to witness what truth felt like in my body.
Wow.
So that when people are telling stories, I'm reading through that and I'm observing my body and I'm like, yeah. And it's either a full body yes, and then there's other times where I meet people or I hear stories and I just say, that is a no. That was just an F no for me. That's not even real. So I started to lean into that signature of truth that started to resonate in my body. And I realized when I did that, I had more hope and I had more peace and
Yeah.
I had more clarity and I had more spiritual connection.
Yeah, I think as witnesses, we don't have even the awareness of how the body and the mind operate.
Yeah.
We don't know that the indoctrination, or like you said, when it's stories that are created, right? That's the indoctrination, right? The indoctrination is the repetitive story that you're being told, and especially for people who are born into it. I mean, from the time they're children, this is being seeded, seeded, seeded. And so you grow up and you never really get to question what you're being told. And I think of the adults that I see sometimes on, the internet who are trying to leave and they don't really know what to believe. They get triggered by events. And it's like, that's the story that you were told that's been repeatedly put in your mind that you never had a chance to kind of like sit down and do what Wendy did, like, or I did, and sit down and go, let me look at this. Is this true?
Mhm.
Is this true? Not what they're telling me, but is this true? And how would I know it's true? It would mean I'd have to go outside. And that's part of the feature of these environments. They don't want you to go outside because, again, it goes back to the hook
Yeah.
of hope and fear, right? Because the minute you find out what all of that stuff is and you see it, the fear goes away, and then you cannot be controlled anymore, right? So I think like I'm hearing Wendy's journey with feeling the body. That is not something that I would say witnesses in general are tapped into. I was feeling in the Kingdom Hall things that I was like, no, that doesn't feel right. Or that doesn't sound true. And then it's the guilt trip. And I'm like, but it doesn't sound true. And that's progressively how I ended up out of it. Right. I started listening to that part of my mind and my body telling me you feel different when you are not in fear. You feel different when you're away from the constant story that drives you to feel the fear.
And that's absolutely correct. Like both in the JW and Mormon culture, like you both said that we are disconnected from our authentic self. We are disconnected from who we are. So how can someone begin to reconnect with themselves when they have these fears of going within?
Mm.
Well, this is something I deal with clients often, like the intuition has been so distorted and almost just hijacked because of this disconnect from the body. And so one of the things that I help them understand about their intuition, because they don't trust it, they're like, I was freaking raised in a cult the whole time thinking I was doing the right thing. How can I trust this inner mechanism that
Mhm.
I'm not in another cult and another cult? I can't trust myself. And then you're taught in the church also that you can't trust your heart, you can't trust yourself. You, without our leadership, without our guidance, without our authority, you are probably going to destroy yourself. And so now you have all this doubt. And this is what I tell my clients in this situation. This is how I know you can trust yourself. Because when you risked losing your friends, your community, your religion, your God, your identity, your relevance with your family, all of these things, you were willing to risk all of that in order to know the truth.
Mhm.
And so when you followed that pathway and you stepped into that place and you're living your life according to the truth that feels true for you, do you feel freer? Do you feel more expansive? Do you feel softer? Do you feel more inclusive? Are you starting to see beauty? Are you starting to hear things you never heard before? Are you starting to really lean into nature? Are you starting to see synchronicities? That means your life is becoming more full and your consciousness has expanded, and you start leaning into what lights you up, whether it's dance or music or whether it is art or whether it is words or whatever is coming through you. And the more you lean into that, the more you are expanding your internal world that is very, very much confined when you are in high demand religion. And
Mhm.
when you start to feel that expansion, and then you look a year or two out of that situation, you look at the church, you're like, there is no way I could fit this expanded self that I've become back into that tiny little box and convince myself to be afraid. It's like a child learning that her parents have been playing Santa Claus all of her life. And maybe this isn't relatable to the Jehovah's Witness community, but I was devastated. I was 8 when my parents told me, no, we're the ones that have the presents. There's really no reindeer, and we eat the cookies, and all these really weird stories. I was shocked, and my I didn't trust my parents anymore. I'm like, what other stories are going on around here? But in my mind, I could not then try to believe that Santa was real when I knew that it was my parents. Like I couldn't put that all back into the Christmas story. And so that's the same as when you leave and you start living according to your intuition. And then you look at the church and you're like, these people, I love them and they look like zombies. They look like they're in some kind of hypnotized state. There's glass over their eyes. There's not depth there. And I'm like, and that's who I used to be. And I can't return to that comatose state of fear and the veins of wisdom and the opportunity to learn from whatever my universe is bringing to me. I can't go back to the state of having to filter it through my religion and through the doctrines that I learned again. It just doesn't work that. I can't go back.
So just to summarize, understanding our history is important to dismantle fear, asking self-reflective questions such as, is this true? And just like what you said, Wendy, just knowing when you talk to someone or like your client, the fact that they left means that they can trust themselves. Like
Yes.
they do have that inner decision and inner trust and inner compass and intuition. They just need to rebuild it. And just understanding that that fear was deliberately put there by stories and by the organization,
Yeah.
those belief systems. When you both left the religion, and obviously you both were able to dismantle this fear, did you start noticing the same fear around the world? Like, did you start noticing those same patterns in media or in different parts of the world outside of the religion?
Definitely. I think leaving the organization, being in a space like that, recognizing what it was doing to my mind, when I left, I noticed it was happening everywhere else, right? Same thing. Created these stories. Someone on social media said recently, everything is made up, right? It's like someone made it up and they became a leader of it and everybody started following, right? So you can start to notice all these different programs. Religion is one, politics is one. The whole gender thing, when people are fighting against just people being who they are, those ideas. It's like these programs that people don't realize that they have acquired are literally running their lives. And I think the greatest work any one of us could ever do is completely freeing our minds from the program so we can see the world for what it really is, right? And I also wanted just to add to what that previous question, something in the organization that I noticed is that people during the pandemic, witnesses during the pandemic, and though they don't even know why it was happening, they felt better. They were off the rat race. They were not as immersed in the program, right? That you're going to notice everywhere when you leave. And that caused them to feel better, right? And it's like it took them a while to kind of go, well, what is that environment that I'm in? It's a program. And it keeps you in this loop, right? Drains you mentally, physically. Wendy talked at length about, being in the body. You don't realize what it is until you get a break from it. But you will see all the other programs when you start to recognize the one that you're in. You will notice when your
Oh,
mind
yeah, when
becomes
you leave
free,
one high control religion, you
you
start
will see it.
noticing all of the patterns.
Yes.
That basically it's the
Yes.
same.
Yes. None of us are born with these ideas or these beliefs or these affiliations to certain things. They're all passed on, right? And it keeps everybody in that program state. But you have to leave one. You have to wake up from one in order to see the others.
What do you think is like the big picture of why fear is always used as a tool to control people?
It stops you from thinking. And thinking is probably one of the most important things that you can do to navigate life here. Fear it just squeezes you in a way that your mind is constricted where you're like this, like not like this. That's just my way because I'm a feely person to explain it. It prevents you from thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you mentioned in our call last week that fear, hold on, I'm trying to remember what it is. Fear stands for false evidence appearing
To
real.
be real. Mm-hmm.
So can you break that down for someone who is still in the organization or someone who's still or freshly out? When they see the news and they see wars and they see all this stuff and they have this Bible trained conscience that, the world is going from bad to worse because this is a belief system and they're seeing it. It's becoming their reality. What can you, and they think that this is prophesized and this is evidence and this is proof. So how can you explain that to them, that fear stands for false evidence appearing real?
Okay. So I can use for what comes to my mind right now is the whole book of Revelation, right? When that book was studied multiple times, it incites a lot of fearful ideas, but those fearful ideas are all curated by a group of people who are limiting you from knowing what that book was really about. Okay. So they're positioning this information that is false evidence appearing to be real, like it's real, like this thing is going to happen, but you don't know that that thing happened centuries ago. And it was for that time. And it was a coding for John to explain to the congregations then. It had nothing to do with today.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. So that is how fear by other people projected out can lock your mind into fear. If you don't know the truth about something and someone can make it up and present it to you and say, this is real, this is truth, and it's not, but it's inciting fear. And that's the thing that I think when I think of false evidence appearing to be real, it's not real. It's not true. They're using something that you don't have full access and knowledge about to keep you in that space. If you knew what it was about, you wouldn't be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
You would not be afraid if you know what that whole book is about. And it's not a translation, it's not someone's opinion, it's just history. And it is a history that, as in general, Western religion does not make available to believers. You don't go to Sunday school or Sunday church or a meeting and sit down and actually pull apart history with those scriptures. You don't. You just read it and they tell you what it is and you believe it, but you never question it. And so because you never question, you live in a fear.
Right.
And you think it's real, but it's not. We can go down the rabbit hole about everything here. Is it real? How do you know? Have you really checked?
Realizing that our history has been altered, and the way that I explain it is fear is a distortion, like a virus in our genetic coding, that has happened for centuries now. It's been alive in our genetic coding for centuries now. And that's why we don't know why we have this tremendous fear of snakes, even though I haven't had any episode with snakes in my current life, or of a fear of heights or whatever. That's accidents, trauma, fearful things happening even in the past can be encoded into our genetic material. It's caused us to have some specific core wounded fears, and that's the fear of being rejected, the fear of being abandoned, the fear of being betrayed, the fear of not having enough. Core wounds become so alive in us, even when they're not legitimate danger in the present now, but they're alive in our past, in our history. They're alive in our fear of the future. And that's why this invitation to come present, you can actually neutralize it. Where if when we let go of the fear and we move into our vision for the future, what lights us up, what brings us joy, and we start mapping onto the energies that will help create and manifest that and bring that into this physical realm, then we realize how powerful we are. And in that moment, you look at the things that you've been taught to fear and you're like, that's ridiculous. Because in my present moment, I look outside and the weather is beautiful and my neighbor is friendly and I have food in my refrigerator and I haven't. Why am I conjuring up and using the brilliance of my mind to conjure up dread and catastrophe?
That DNA coded fear that Wendy just mentioned, how that shows up in our Jehovah Witness environment and probably in Mormons and other religions, because religion is a generationally inherited experience. We don't know sometimes what our great grandfather, who might have become a witness, was, what fear caused him to connect to this idea that this religion is the one that will bring about hope and internal peace for him. Mm-hmm. Right? That's that encoding that gets passed on until that one person goes, this makes no sense.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That one person says, like Wendy was saying, I don't want to hold that idea in my mind.
Wow.
And I don't care what's going to happen if I leave this institution of fear. I don't care. I don't want it anymore. It's not working for me in my life. When you release the things that have been keeping generations down in fear, you get to open and experience what is, right? So that a lot of people get upset with their families. I see it online. People, my mom came into the organization, she did this, that, whatever. And it's like, your mother was afraid of something, but you don't know what that is. Right. And for your mother to be a witness, her parents were afraid of something. That's the trauma that you don't know about that's just moving forward.
Oh, that's so interesting. Okay, so fear can be generational, right? Can be passed on. And fear can also be put into us, like how the religion put fear into us. Or is that, am I getting that right?
I would say they trigger a fear and they give you the antidote for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They trigger the fear. Oh, you don't know what's happening, right? Your loved one, when they die, you'll never see them again. Oh, well, here's a resurrection hope.
It's powerful.
You start to figure out what humanity's is been experiencing. It gets really interesting to start to pull it apart.
We are at a most, like, there is a convergence going on right now where the fallout of people leaving religion, the outflux of people who are waking up and going, this cannot possibly be the program. I have so much compassion for what both of you have gone through because I've gone through something similar. And I know I'm in no competition to say that an ex-Jehovah's Witness has more of this or that than an ex-Mormon. I'm just like here present with you going, wow, what a wild ride that was.
Yeah.
How are you doing? What are you creating? What do you love? How can we collaborate? How can we help our people? And in that's a very unified, whereas a religion was very divisive. And now we're in this place where we're healing genetic material that has not been renegotiated for centuries. And we never thought that our religion would be the thing that we would have to let go of because we were taught that the religion is the thing that would save us.
Yes.
And so it does a complete inversion into the mind to see your religion as the problem and not the solution.
Yeah. That was beautiful. Thank you.
That was a stream of consciousness.
I'm kind of passionate about it.
But
Yeah,
but
no,
it's the same thing. You know how we were in the organization and we would learn about the fall of the different civilizations and the different governments and all of that.
Yes.
It's the same thing. Humanity is evolving. That's all.
Yeah.
They're just evolving to the next greater expression of themselves. And you can't take the caca that it's been dealing with you. You got to let it go. That's why it looks crazy. That's the stuff that can't go where humanity is moving into. That's all.
So it's not the narrative that the world is actually getting worse from bad to worse. So you're saying that it's actually humanity is actually progressing?
They're progressing. Yes. You have to release what no longer serves you in order for you to evolve. So if you look at humanity as one big collective being, right, there is something within humanity that has to come out in order for it to kind of expand even more. I can see massive amounts of people freaking out when they see something and it's like, okay, but that's a release. I can do that on my own. If I decide, because I know everything is connected, that humanity is moving forward because it's all one. If I do my work, then collectively they'll experience it.
So it sounds like we have the power to choose.
You have the power to choose.
Yeah.
That to me is that is the biggest point right there, is you are always, always, always at choice as to what direction you're going to go. It's so normal and natural to look at what's going on in the world, to get on your phone and start scrolling, go, oh my goodness, what is going to happen? Every structure that I've been taught to lean into and to trust and to give my power over to is collapsing. And like, where am I supposed to go? It is your invitation to go inward. That is your invitation to get present. And you are always at choice. And you are always at ownership. Your mind is the most glorious, most powerful instrument. If you had any idea what your mind was capable of, you can't even fathom it. And so when you just at that moment where you get to choose, well, am I going to lean into this fear and this, or I'm going to lean into peace? You are always a choice, but the choice that you make doesn't just impact you and your mind. A nervous system that is in high frequency, high resonance of peace and love and hope and joy impacts so many other people. And so for me, I made the choice that I refuse to use my energy, my mind, my choice, my body, my heart to generate scenes that create doom and destruction. I won't do it. That's my choice.
I love it.
Powerful.
Yeah. And I think when you make such a powerful decision like that, you can really start creating things from a
Mhm.
place of love and peace. Ugh. So, how can someone, you know, stay informed about what's happening without being completely consumed by it? Media is another type of programming. So, how can someone be informed by what's happening in the world, but also kind of have boundaries so that we can't be consumed by the fear-mongering stuff that's happening in the world?
I know over the years, what I have done is gently removed myself from those environments, right? I started maybe watching the news, and then the pandemic happened, and I recognized, oh, I'm not feeling what other people are feeling, right? I can tell that there's something that these media people are doing to drive people to fear of death and sickness, but I'm not feeling that. So maybe I should just kind of remove myself from that environment. And then I would just read the news online. And I started to notice that I didn't really enjoy the feeling of witnessing distortion that was also causing people fear, right? And so it's kind of like a gentle pulling back to where if I need to know what's happening in the world, I will know. I don't worry about having to go find it to see what's happening, to go deep into doom scrolling. I don't do that, right? I am protecting my energy so that I can be helpful for others.
Love that.
Yeah, and I don't get triggered by that stuff, but to me, it's not something that's true because I know what's really happening, right? So if I were going to help someone, I would say, or suggest something, I would say, take a few days off and see how you feel. Take a week off from the news, take a week off
Yeah.
and just see if you feel any different. Then go look at it again and see if you feel different. Because if something external is driving something inside of you, making you feel a certain way, anxiety, that kind of feeling, then that means that there's something that is calling for attention here. Yeah, it's about really loving yourself enough not to empower, not to give your power over to anything that disempowers you. And that is what fear does.
I have a little bit of a different take, but also a same take in that we're being asked right now is what is my part? And for some people, they have the internal constitution to handle the news, to handle the dark, to handle the most vile things. And I'm so thankful that they are the ones doing the work, bringing this, heaving this up out of the earth that has been there for such a long time. The light is coming, and that's why it's messier, is because everything that's been hidden for so long is now on display, and it's scrambling because the light is shining on it. So my invitation is to see, where is your part? What is your constitution designed to handle? What are you a contractor? Are you a therapist? Are you what some would call a light worker, where you're there to hold the light? Are you here to help people heal their trauma? Are you here to help build systems? The illusion is that we aren't going to be charged with changing the planet, that it's just going to whoop and it'll just all be changed. No, we're going to have to learn from each other and work together according to the skills and talents that we have. We are going to be charged with rebuilding this world. And we have everything that we need is within us. So my goal, my job is to help you remember who you are
Mm.
and to convince you with everything that I have that you have it within you to create something magnificent. And up until now, you've been stifled and muted, and there's fear around becoming who you were really designed to be. My invitation is to light you up. And if your constitution cannot handle the news, then that becomes your responsibility to keep it away.
I'm not to cut you off, Wendy. I'm really speaking to the people that I see that are like literally like, this is I'm so
Yeah.
anxious from what is happening. And I'm like, that is a sign to take a break.
Yeah.
That is a sign. And these are regular people. These are your average people who are embroiled in this political theater that is happening with the wars. There, I can feel their anxiety. And I'm like, that means take a breath, breathe, breathe. Your breath is like the centering agent of your being. So if your anxiety causes you to do this, that means you need to take a breath so you can do that. Okay. There's simple things. A step away from that computer, a step away from that TV is the most empowering thing you could ever do to keep your power to yourself versus giving it off to an energy that is designed to siphon it. Because that's what is happening when you feel anxiety, you're losing awareness of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, the light worker people, they're all on like a whole spectrum of different kinds of work. There's some of us who are very clandestine with our work. You don't see us coming, right? The game changers behind the scenes that are like quietly working on things and moving things. And they're the people who are out there who are like on the front lines. Yes, definitely. I agree with that. But and people are really ODing on toxicity,
I agree.
and they don't really recognize that's what it is, and why they feel the way that they feel is because they're just embodying this thing, and they really just need to take a step back. And I love when other people who are not even doing anything like what the work that any of us are doing right now, they're like, y'all can't watch that all the time. You got to take a break.
Mm-hmm.
You got to give your body an opportunity to reset, because it's that the energy in your body is that powerful. If you move it away, it will reset. So that's what I meant when I said, about what we're here to do. Take a break from that stuff sometimes. You don't have to sit in front of the TV all the time. It's never going to change. 5 hours of the same thing.
I was thinking another way that a person could be re-triggered is if, like, let's say if they're out, right? And they're out, and because I remember this happened during the pandemic, personally for me, when I was out, I had elders and so many people reach out to me and say that this is, this is the time of the end, like you need to come back to Jehovah. And I have to say, I was re-triggered, was triggered by by those calls, because I was still mentally in the religion. I was just physically out of the religion. I was still mentally in. But what would you say? I don't know if you both, I don't know if you've experienced that, like being out of the religion and getting contacted by people in the religion and saying that, hey, come back, you know, Armageddon is coming, or, what Mormons believe. Like, how did you stay grounded and how did you respond to that pressure?
I think it's important to honor that they get to return to what gives them peace. And if
Mhm.
that's what gives them peace, then I honor everybody's pathway. But they don't realize what they're doing when they invite you back into their world of anxiety.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, you're inviting me back to this world of dread and nihilistic anxiety and self-righteous, arrogant, small-minded, and like they don't realize what they're doing. They're doing that in an effort to save you because that's what they feel is required in their own mind. And so I'm inclined to be very respectful
Yeah.
of that. Thank you for being concerned about me. I'm doing really okay in my world. Thank you for letting me evolve in my own space. That means a lot to me that you're concerned. And then I'll probably put a boundary in. I'm not willing to have this conversation with you because I'm a Star Trek person and I'm not going to leave your planet or your mind with anything else because you're not asking me for that. You're calling me back into your world. And so I
Yeah.
don't need to explain all this as to why I'm never going back to that space. I used to be in that place, but I'm not anymore. I just smile and I say, please do that which brings you peace.
Beautiful. Deb?
I'm on the same mindset too, because I have come across, former members who are having a really challenging time navigating this situation in the world today and just other things in life, and have vocalized like, I feel like I need to go back to my family for now because there's some kind of stability and I feel safe there. And I've honored that. Like, you know what? that is the best path for you to take, please take it. Right. For me, I would, my mom would bring it up like, it's the last days again, the last days. And I'm like, mom, you're right. And I'm fine.
Mm.
And that was really the truth. Like, thank you. I'm fine. And then she would just leave me alone. Because what else could she say? Right. Just
Yeah.
having our own unique journeys with the same information. But yeah, I'm inclined to be very, very open and just empathetic with people who are scared. And yeah, maybe going back to that environment may cause a deeper opening and awareness. Who am
Mm.
I to interrupt with that?
Yeah. So it's not, yeah, be respectful. Everybody has their own path, and it's not a weakness if they do
Mm.
choose to do that. Yeah. Now that fear is not running your life, how have you been able to protect your peace? And how are you able to build without fear?
So for me, protecting my peace has been learning. It's been a curiosity. It's been connecting with people, and again, feeling my nervous system knows when it's feeling expanded, and so I realize that I'm on a vein of truth. And when someone delivers something that really lands in me, and I explore it, and I just go, what juicy nutrients can I add that they're sharing right now that I can start implementing in my own life. And I also surround myself with people who think expansive like me. They don't necessarily think like me, but they think expansive like me. And right now we're building like retreats where we get to showcase
Wow.
gifts that have to do with sound healing, that have to do with breath work, that have to do with dance, that have to do with music and poetry and art and understanding what trusts are and understanding financial fluidity and emotional. There are so many things to learn right now to onboard to help us become more developed human beings than have ever been accessible to us. You get inspired, you get veins of creativity that you don't even know where they came from. You start connecting with people who have ideas that synchronize right up with yours. Your collaborations become more conscious, and you start to say, oh my gosh, it really is all about me being the curator and the master of my own mind. And
Mhm.
so for us to sit and just wait for the Armageddon to come and do its thing, it means that's how deep the influence and the mind virus of the religion has completely frozen you and convinced you that your spark and your seed is not potent enough to
Wow.
penetrate this
That's so
field.
crazy. I feel like we would have missed out on Wendy if you were still living in fear-based
Yes.
and all the explosive things that you're doing. So amazing. So how about you, Debbie? What are you building now that you are, that fear is not, well, I feel like fear has never been in your life, but like,
No, it's been there. It's been there. I think for me, I have to say my journey with peace right now is the observation of my fear when it surfaces, right? It's a different relationship with fear that I have now. I'm more curious about it, and then I'm like, oh, look at that. I'm afraid of something. I'm feeling fear around something. What is that about? Right. And honoring my inner child, right? Because my inner child is the one that's rising up. So I'm doing a lot of inner child work still. And that is what kind of like connects me to that foundational piece that's there. It's a fun journey because I'm learning a different aspect of navigating with the inner child work. But the work that I'm really excited about that we're building right now, especially in this country, as someone who I wasn't born in America, but I have the skin tone of people who have been treated horribly, just egregious treatment, oppression, suppression of the mind and the body. And I'm so excited about working with especially Black women, watching them heal that generational trauma that comes with racism. The mother wound is a big thing for me, healing that mother wound, walking in soft power. That's the kind of work that I'm being called to right now. That's the Coherence Lab. That's what we're building the space for, is to kind of like help women discover, especially Black women, that primordial power that they are. So that's kind of what I'm building. It's this renaissance of Black people liberation theology, because I'm in ministerial school, to kind of like remind Black people that whatever has happened to you was all a projection, and working on the wound that caused that projection also, because I'm holding space for all people. So, yeah, freedom, internal liberation of people of color, Black people in this country.
Yeah, it's like you make doing the work, the healing work, so empowering too. Because when you think about all the layers of trauma, some
Mhm.
people might feel intimidated by unraveling all of that, but the end of it is worth it. I can't believe we all left the patriarchy system and we're just building amazing, beautiful lives. Thank you for sharing your gifts, you two. It's just amazing. I can't, we would have been kept from that, kept away from all of that and not being able to experience your gifts and the beautiful, and like you're not able to like share your beautiful gifts with the world. So, so happy you both have chosen to do that. Yeah. I know you ladies mentioned about like just putting our energy into creating, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and that's really the best way, especially right now. But unfortunately, one of the things that high control religions do is that they preach that like there's no point of building a future outside of the organization. Why? Because the world is going to end, right? So they have that narrative in their head, but then when they wake up and they see this all this chaos in the world, they kind of have this mind of like, why would I build anything if the world might end right now?
Mm-hmm.
So, what would you say to a person who might have that vulnerability, who might have that scarcity mindset of like they have that narrative that was put in their mind, but they're just waking up and now they're seeing all of this. Is it too late for them to build? They might have that narrative in their mind.
It's understandable. I feel like I would just, position it as, well, let's look at the world of people in a previous civilization, a previous country, a previous nation. Let's look at how people rebuild. Let's look at how people restart, or people build upon what falls apart or falls away, right? If you decide that you want to be a part of that, you can. But if you don't, then you're going to fall away. So do you want to move with the flow this way? Do you still want to build something that you can enjoy in this moment now versus having a regret down the road that you never did it? And I kind of see that sometimes with ExJWs. I kind of notice that they'll say things like, well, I'm 50 now and I didn't go to
Oh,
school
yeah.
and I don't know. And I'm like, yeah, you didn't do that, but it doesn't mean you can't do it now.
That's so true. Because time is
Mhm.
one of those things that really hurt them when they leave. Like, I lost so much time, and
Mhm.
what is there to build? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to get to a point in your life where you're taking your last breath, and you say, I wish I had done that thing when I was 50, right? So it's always about positioning like, okay, so if you look behind, you can't regain that, but what can you do today? What do you want to experience now? What do you want to feel now, right? I mean, I didn't go to college, right? But I'm in school, and it's kind of like, because I want my life back. That's how you get your life back, by putting your hands on the driver's wheel and saying, okay, I drive this life. This is where I'm going. This is what I want. I feel like with ExJW, sometimes the organization has really neutralized desire, right, to experience things. So they don't really know how to activate that. And for
Mm.
me, it's about like, what do you love? Like when they said, what lights you up? Like what would you do? What would you do if you could? What would you do if you could today? You didn't play basketball or you didn't play baseball. What about baseball would you like to involve yourself in today? Because it's not so much about the baseball that you want, it's really about how it would have felt, right? The feeling of being part of something like that.
Hmm.
So it's really sometimes about, I don't know what to do, but there's something you can do now. I think
Yeah.
that's my job, is to kind of like show people possibilities, right? It's like, okay, so that's gone. What's here? Because whatever you do here, it sets you up for there. If you want to live with regret here, you're going to live with regret there. What do you want?
Hmm.
You have a choice. That's the beautiful part about life.
For me, it's kind of like Star Trek is a good example. The movie or the show that I grew up watching, and that is that they would land on these different planets and they would observe it and they would try to not interfere as much as possible. And that's how I try to be with, especially my believing family that is still in the church, and they're still thinking in that way. And so I have an acronym for that. It's let others voluntarily evolve, which is love.
Mm.
And so if you're feeling like there's no use, I'm not even going to try anything, that's your choice, and that's okay. How is your choice making you feel? When you think this thought, do you feel peaceful? Do you feel more curious? Are you suddenly excited? Are you starting to have ideas? Are you connecting with opportunities? Are you making connections with people who want to collaborate with you? Is that what's happening when you have this thought that why even try? The world's coming to an end anyway.
Mhm.
Or do you go into this place of feeling disappointed, unfulfilled, regret, apathetic? You're creating all the time, and you are constantly at choice. And so if what you're thinking and feeling right now, if you're going to expand it and magnify it, are you going to grow and grow and grow and grow? Or are you becoming small and diminished and tiny and less valuable, less on fire, less of a spark of genius? That's always up to you. And I'm not here to judge whatever it is that you're choosing. But what I will say is people who believe that our world is on the precipice of something that has never been created before, and they want to collaborate and do things and share things with people, they light me up. Like my whole body is lit up when I think of them. And so for me, I'm moving in that direction. That's where I'm going because it makes me more curious. They inspire me. And if the planet were to explode tomorrow, I would rather be in that state. I would rather be in that state than be in this place of dread and doom. And that dread and doom was some bad storyline that my religion taught me to neutralize me and to keep me ignorant of my own power.
Up next.
I noticed a car was coming, and I said to myself, oh, I see this car, let me get out of her way. She still hit me, and I fell in the street, went to the hospital, and that's where I realized I'm not happy, and I just wanted to be happy. So the accident was the catalyst. 1 year later, I left my job, I left my marriage, and I left the organization all at the same time. I was suicidal at one point, and I was going to do it. This little voice on my right ear said, if you do this, you won't know. And I remember turning in the direction of where I heard the voice, and I said, I won't know what. I wouldn't know this today.
How can someone identify with their authentic self?
Ask yourself 3 questions. Who am I? Where am I? And
So always remember, my friends, to own your story, own your power, and live your truth.